Hello and welcome, my name is Ansu, and today I wanted to talk about some of my most anticipated fantasy releases of 2022. We're still doing videos based off of anticipated things for 2022 because I'm still very excited about the things that are happening in 2022. But let's get into it. Let's chat about some of the books that I'm looking forward to. The first one, I have talked about this earlier, and I did get this book from NetGalley, and it is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Lynn. This one follows around our main character Scion, who has grown up on the moon, and she's accustomed to solitude as she's only lived with her mother and servant. Scion is unaware that she's being hidden from the emperor, who had exiled her mother because she stole an elixir for immortality. When Scion's magic flares one day, her existence is discovered and she kind of has to flee from her home in order to survive, and she has to leave her mother behind. Basically, she's alone and powerless and afraid, and she's working in like this cavern sort of place and makes her way to the celestial kingdom. She has to obviously disguise her identity, and she gets to work alongside the emperor's son, who she kind of strikes a good relationship with, and she's mastering archery and magic with this emperor's son. There seems to be this like passion between Scion and this prince, and in order to save her mother, she has to go through this perilous quest. And by the end of things, she has to kind of challenge the ruthless celestial emperor, and she strikes this dangerous bargain in which she's torn between losing all she loves or plunging the realm into chaos. It's just a very high stakes kind of a book with a lot of betrayal, magic and power and all that kind of stuff. It's a very exciting book. I think you need to get to it like really soon. The next two books I want to talk about I also got from HarperCollins, and that is Blood Scion by Deborah Falaye. Deborah is also Canadian. She's a Nigerian Canadian. And like the little blurb on the back says, "This is what they deserve. They wanted me to be a monster. I will be the worst monster they ever created." 15-year-old Sloane can incinerate her enemies at will. She's a Scion, which is the descendant of the ancient Orisha god. Under the brutal rule of Lucis, if her identity is known, if her powers are out there, it means she has a death sentence. One day she's forcibly taken into Lucis's army. Sloane sees a new opportunity. She has to like overcome the challenges of Lucis's training, and she can destroy them from within. So through some of the years, Sloane kind of rises up in her ranks. She gains strength, but there's something that she's risking that's much greater. She could potentially lose herself entirely. The author had talked about this book in the HCZ Frenzy event, and I was just so excited for this book. I really needed to get my hands on it, and I requested for it, and I got it. I'm just super pumped to get to this book. Look at how gorgeous this cover is. Like, I'm so excited. The other book that I got from HCZ Frenzy that I'm super excited for is Gallant by Victoria Schwab. If you didn't know, I love V.E. Schwab. I love Victoria Schwab. I think she has just a wonderful way of saying stories, and I have started reading this. This is coming out in March of this year. We're following around this character named Olivia Pryor, who has grown up in Maryland's School for Girls, and the only thing that she has of her past is her mother's journal, and it just kind of unravels into madness through the pages, essentially. Then one day, a letter arrives for Olivia to come home, but even though she arrives to Gallant, no one is really expecting her, and she's just not about to leave the place that for the first time feels kind of like home. It truly doesn't matter to her that her cousin Matthew is kind of hostile, and she can see some of the ghosts or ghouls that are haunting the hallways. And Olivia is just really curious to know the secrets of Gallant and like what truly happened to her parents. One day she crosses a ruined wall at the right time. She kind of crosses worlds almost. It's like a parallel universe, but in this place there's like one evil person who's kind of controlling this world, and also the ghouls seem more real, like they're more tangible. The manor is also crumbling in this world, and there just is this like mysterious figure who's ruling them all. Olivia kind of sees what has unraveled generations of her family and where her father may have come from. So Olivia has to kind of make that decision of whether she will basically save the manor or work with this mysterious figure, and that's kind of how the story goes. I've started reading it. It's going really well so far, and I'm super excited to get to the rest of it. The next one that seemed very interesting to me was Book of Night by Holly Black. Holly Black is a very popular author. Everybody knows about her, I'm pretty sure. And in this book, we have, in this world, shadows can be altered for entertainment or cosmetic preferences, but it can also be done to increase power or influence. So you can alter someone's feelings or memories, but it comes at a cost, with the potential of taking hours or days out of your life. Shadow has the like opportunity, I guess, to stay hidden, and also it could potentially be a second self, so a completely different entity. So Charlie is a low-level con artist, and she's working as a bartender, and also she's trying to distance herself from like the powerful and dangerous trading of shadows. One day a terrible figure from her past kind of shows up, and her whole life is kind of uprooted and her future seems to be almost non-existent to her. Charlie is just really trying to survive at this point. It goes from there. Sounds like a very fun, high stakes kind of a fantasy, and I'm like super excited to get to that one as well. The next one I want to talk about is Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. I've heard so many lovely things about this. I think it's coming out later into the year, I think April if I'm not wrong, and I've already heard such wonderful things about this book. I believe this is also based off of a Hindu mythology, and she's the only daughter of the kingdom of Kaikeyi. She has been raised on these tales about the might and benevolence of the gods, how they obtained the nectar of immortality, vanquished evil, all that kind of stuff. She ends up watching her father banishing her mother, and she listens to the fact that her worth is completely based on the fact of getting like a good marriage alliance. She's just really desperate to have some semblance of independence. She turns to these texts that she wants to read with her mother in order to figure out things for herself, and she comes across some magic that is her own. Kaikeyi kind of transforms herself from this like overlooked princess into a warrior, and she's also determined to carve a good world for herself and also the women around her. Of course, the evil things from her childhood stories kind of show up, and she has to deal with all of those kind of things, and I guess try to really be this warrior that she has set herself out to be. It just sounds very whimsical and powerful, and just very excited to get to this one. The next one I want to talk about is All of Us Ones by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. Basically, in this world there's a tournament, and at every generation at the coming of the blood moon there are 7 families. Each family names a champion and they go to compete, and basically the prize that they kind of get is this well of magic. Essentially, it is the most powerful resource in the world, and it was thought that it was long depleted. So each of them are kind of thrown into this worldwide spotlight, and they're granted new methods, new information to actually win. But it literally says in the end that this is supposed to be penned in blood. So there's definitely going to be a lot of bloodshed for some magic, and it just sounds very intriguing to me. And I have read a couple of books by Amanda Foody, and I really enjoyed one of them, and I'm really looking forward to what she has to offer with this other book with another author, so I'm definitely looking forward to that one. And another book that I'm really excited and looking forward to is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lynn. Honestly, I picked this one for the cover. I really got super intrigued about this. I have talked about it in one of my previous videos, and in this one we have Ning. To her, the only thing worse than losing her mother is knowing that it was her own fault. She was the one who unknowingly brewed this poison tea, and that ended up killing her mother. This poison tea also threatens to take the life of her sister Shu, and when Ning hears about this competition to find the kingdom's greatest Shenong Shi, which is a master of the ancient art of tea making, she travels to the imperial city to compete. The winner will receive a favor from the princess. That could mean that's the only way that Ning could potentially save her sister's life. There's backstabbing competitors, obviously, and of course this attempt to survive, this quest, all those kind of things just has really intrigued me, and I'm really looking forward to this book. But it's such a beautiful cover. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's honestly why I picked it, but it sounds really intriguing as well. So the next one I actually saw on Megan's channel from Peru's Project, and I thought it was kind of interesting that I put it on my list as well. It is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. So we have Edwin St. Andrew, who's 18 years old. When he crosses the Atlantic by steamship, he's exiled from a polite society. He enters this forest and is spellbound by the beauty of Canadian wilderness, and suddenly he hears the notes of a violin echoing in an airship terminal. So 2 centuries later, there's this famous author named Olive who's on a book tour. She's traveling all over Earth, but her home is a second moon colony. Within the text of Olive's best-selling Pandemic novel lies a strange passage. A man plays his violin for change in the echoing corridor of an airship terminal as the trees of a forest rise around him. There's this detective who ends up going to investigate an anomaly in the Northern American wilderness, and he uncovers a series of lives that are upended. There's this exiled son of an earl who's driven to madness. We have a writer trapped far from home as a pandemic ravages Earth, and a childhood friend from the Night City who has, like this detective, glimpsed the chance to do something extraordinary that will disrupt the timeline of the universe. It actually kind of sounds creepy, but I'm like really pumped to get to it. It sounds really intriguing. Like, I'm really intrigued by that whole synopsis just to see like what it's going to be like. Honestly, like, this is not something that I would see or pick up in general. Like, I don't think so, but just hearing about it really got me intrigued, and I'd like to get to read it one day. The last book I want to talk about that I'm super pumped about is This Whirlwind Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. Tahereh Mafi has written the Shatter Me series, and I really enjoyed her writing style. There are a couple other books that I've read from her, and this one is a new release that is coming out later in this year. In this world we have Elise, who is because to the world she is a disposable servant and not the long lost heir of an ancient Jinn kingdom, and she's forced to hide in plain sight. There's a crown prince named Cameron, and he has heard the prophecies foretelling the death of the king, but he could never have imagined that the servant girl with the strange eyes, the girl that he can't really put out of his mind, was the one that is going to uproot his entire kingdom and the world. This just sounds like it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun, and I'm just really excited to see what Tahereh Mafi has to offer. And this, I think, it's a new series if I'm not wrong, and I'm just really pumped to see what she has to offer in this world. Alright guys, those are some of the fantasy releases of 2022 that I'm really excited about. Let me know down below if there are any books that you were looking forward to that are coming out in 2022 that I have not heard about and I'd like to know. If you're new here, hi, welcome, my name is Ansu. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to be notified every single time I upload a new video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next time with another one. Until then, I'll talk to you all in the comments. Bye!